You? Write a book? The laugh hit harder than a slap sharp, unfiltered, and loud enough to halt the hiss of the espresso machine. Nina's fingers tightened around her thrifted leather folder, worn but neatly kept. She said nothing. Trevor raised his voice just enough for the room to hear. This is L.A., sweetheart. Dreams don't run on optimism and whatever that outfit is. A ripple of awkward chuckles rose from the back booth. Someone lowered their laptop screen. Nina stood still, eyes steady, her silence a quiet dare. Trevor snatched the folder from her hand. Let's see what brilliance you've got here. Oh, wow, typed on a library computer, I'm guessing? He held up the pages and flipped through them like he was looking at garbage. She reached forward, but he stepped back, tearing one sheet slowly down the middle. Then another. You think Hollywood needs another sob story from a homeless black woman with dreams and a thesaurus? The laughter swelled, hesitant but real. People looked over their shoulders, gauging each other's reactions, trying to decide whether it was okay to laugh. Nina's jaw twitched. Trevor leaned in close. Let me give you a free note, since you clearly can't afford coverage. Hope doesn't sell. Brands do. And yours is trash. A woman near the window whispered, Is this real? Phones tilted. A red light blinked quietly in the crowd. Still, Nina stood tall. Trevor bowed like a performer, feeding off the chuckles. I mean, this handwriting, did a toddler ghostwrite it? You want to pitch this to Netflix or Sesame Street? Laughter echoed, this time laced with guilt. A man by the counter forced a grin, then looked away. Someone murmured, She should. Just walk away. But Nina didn't flinch. Her silence was disarming, defiant. Trevor raised a brow. Nothing to say now? Not so bold without your little sob story. A young woman giggled nervously, then caught Nina's eyes and immediately looked down at her drink. Another patron whispered to his friend, She brought this on herself. Trevor turned toward the small crowd that had formed. This, folks, is a masterclass in delusion. A live reading of How Not to Break into Hollywood. There was a smattering of soft applause. Some laughed harder, as if louder meant safer. No. One asked him to stop. No one said a word to Nina. Hey, a voice broke through the noise. The young barista behind the counter, Lila, stepped forward, her fists clenched at her sides. You can't just humiliate her like that, Trevor scoffed. Oh, relax. She came here for feedback. I'm giving it to her for free. Lila opened her mouth again, but a sharp voice cut across the room. Lila, back to the register. It was the cafe manager, white, crisp-shirted, and visibly annoyed. Now. Lila hesitated, then looked at Nina. Their eyes met for a brief, electric second, one filled with apology and something else. Recognition. The manager added, This isn't your business. Trevor smiled, victorious. Layla walked back slowly, shame rising in her chest. The crowd relaxed again. Nina didn't speak, but her stillness said everything. They'd heard him loud and clear and chose silence. Nina bent down, calmly retrieving the folder's torn remains. She glanced around at the faces that had judged her, laughed at her, dismissed her. Then she spoke, quiet but steady. Shonda knew the risks, too. A murmur cut through the room like a cold gust. Phones lowered. Eyebrows rose. Trevor blinked. What? Nina straightened. Rhymes. She once said the only thing harder than being a black woman in TV... is being an invisible one. She met Trevor's gaze. I've written episodes under 3 different showrunners. Your client's last hit? That emotional arc in season 3? Mine. The cafe shifted. Recognition bloomed in a few stunned faces. I don't want credit, Nina added. I just wanted feedback. Someone near the back whispered, Wait... What's her name? Nina placed the ripped pages gently on the counter. They used to call me Ink. ghostwriter for people too fragile to create truth themselves. Trevor's mouth opened, but no words came out. The cafe fell into stunned stillness. Nobody laughed. A woman lowered her phone, recording lights still glowing. A man cleared his throat, unsure of where to look. Nina walked out slowly, the door chime echoing like a gavel in a courtroom. Not no one followed, not no one dared speak. She stepped onto the bus bench and exhaled, tears finally spilling. Behind her, the calf buzzed now a scene of regret. Too late to undo. Her folder sat beside her. Torn pages, scattered ink, an untold truth. But someone else saw it, someone who would read it and finally listen. A nobody now, Nina whispered to herself, voice low enough to blend with the city's distant hum. 45 years old. But the world saw her as invisible, just another homeless woman lost in the shadows of Los Angeles. Once, she'd been the name behind award-winning scripts, a brilliant storyteller whose words captivated millions. Now, her notebooks were scribbled on torn scraps and worn napkins, hidden beneath layers of thrifted clothes and bruised hope. She wasn't looking for pity. Not anymore. Nina carried a quiet weight, memories of stolen stories and silenced voices. The legacy of a woman who once moved mountains, now reduced to murmurs. Her pen still danced with ideas, her mind alive with worlds waiting to be told. But out here, on the streets, she was just that woman nobody listens to. Nina's name had once echoed in elite writing rooms, praised for her creativity and grit. But betrayal cut deep. Studio executives had taken her scripts without credit, pockets lined with profits that weren't hers. Grief gnawed at her heart, too. Losing her sister, her anchor, left a hole no success could fill. The racism she faced wasn't always loud. It was the quiet erasure, the subtle dismissal, because she was a black woman refusing to be invisible. So, she walked away, not with a bang, but a retreat. Nina disappeared from the spotlight, letting her name fade into whispers. She chose silence. Over a world that celebrated her shadow, but never her soul. Under the alias S.R., Nina wrote in the margins of her life. No fanfare, no bylines, just words pressed into the backs of flyers, napkins, and any scrap of paper she could find. She stayed off-grid, living in the cracks of the city, absorbing every story around her. Her voice was hidden, but her pen never stopped. Each line she wrote was a testament, not to fame or fortune, but to survival. To prove that stories have power, even when the storyteller is unseen. Hollywood insiders buzzed with rumors Shonda Rhimes, the queen of TV. Drama was taking an unexpected hiatus. Some speculated burnout. Others whispered scandal. But what no one knew was that Shonda's voice hadn't disappeared at all. Nina was the ghost behind the scripts that had kept audiences hooked. The true genius writing from the shadows. She watched as the world speculated, hiding in plain sight. The irony wasn't lost on her. While the industry mourned Shonda's absence, Nina's words shaped the stories they loved, unrecognized and uncredited. Clad in worn layers, Nina refused to let appearance define her worth. Designer labels didn't write scripts. Talent didn't ask for permission to exist. Her mission wasn't to chase money. It was to shatter stereotypes, to show the world that brilliance can wear rags and still burn brighter than gold. Every word she crafted was a rebellion against the narrow boxes society tried to place her in. Her pen was her power, and nothing could silence that. Nina's hands trembled slightly as she prepared her warm manuscript this time, ready to risk everything. The world hadn't seen the last of her. She was poised on the edge of revelation, a storm gathering behind quiet eyes. Soon, her invisibility would end, and the truth would speak louder than prejudice. Nina pulled out her battered laptop at the corner table of the downtown library, the only place where silence welcomed her without judgment. She sipped cold coffee, the bitter taste grounding her as she typed each word a tiny rebellion against. A world that refused to see her dot between bites of worn sandwiches and brief breaks to recharge her device. Nina clung to hope. Her stories lived in these quiet moments, woven through endless keystrokes. Despite how others glanced past her, as if she were invisible, she wasn't just surviving. She was writing to be heard, even if the world refused to acknowledge the woman. Behind the words, Nina's mind burned bright with dreams that no hardship could dim dot at the bookstore event. Nina approached the registration table with cautious optimism. Her thrifted jacket and tired eyes drew quick, dismissive glances from the volunteer handling sign-ups. "I'm here to register," Nina said softly, offering her name and a hopeful smile. The volunteer's eyes flicked over her, lingering on. The worn edges of her clothes and the faint scent that clung to her skin. "Sorry, ma'am," the volunteer replied, voice flat. "We're only accepting registered writers. You don't really look prepared." Nina's heart sank as a faint smirk curved on a nearby attendee's lips. It wasn't her writing being judged. It was her appearance. Her worth measured by her clothes and cleanliness. No one said it aloud, but the message was clear. You don't belong here. Caleb, a well-known literary agent with sharp suits and sharper words, stood nearby, watching Nina's failed attempt to join the event. When she hesitated, trying to explain her passion for writing, he stepped forward with a sneer. "You? Write a book?" His voice boomed, loud enough for half the room to hear. Nina swallowed hard, but she didn't back down. Caleb laughed, cruel and calculated. "You look like you got your MFA in trash cans. Maybe stick to stories about living in alleys, because that's your real expertise." A few guests chuckled nervously, eyes darting away, unwilling to challenge him. "You don't have what it takes?" Caleb continued, voice dripping with scorn. "This is a business, sweetheart, not a charity." Nina's cheeks burned, but her gaze stayed steady. This wasn't just about rejection. It was a public dismissal, fueled by racism and classism. Wrapped in the guise of critique, her talent was ignored. Her humanity was overlooked. Throughout the event, Nina felt the weight of invisible eyes. Security guards hovered nearby, their silent presence a constant reminder. She was a threat, not a participant. Guests treated her like a ghost passing without acknowledgement, as if her presence disrupted their curated world. She was hypervisible in their suspicion, but invisible in their respect. Her blackness and poverty painted her as a problem to be monitored, not a voice to be heard. Every glance, every whispered comment was a barrier she had to break through, but no one handed her the tools. Nina signed up early for the open mic pitch hour, clutching her notes with hope. Yet when the list was called, her name was nowhere to be found. "Sorry, the list is full," a coordinator said, eyes flicking toward a neatly dressed woman who was added moments later. She stepped forward anyway, offering a concise logline, but was waved off with polite excuses and distracted smiles. Others, who arrived after her and looked the part, were welcomed on stage without hesitation. The system wasn't broken. It was rigged. Access depended not on talent or timing, but on fitting into a narrow mold of acceptability. Outside the event, Nina spotted a producer leaving with his entourage. Gathering courage, she shared her pitch quietly. He barely looked up, distracted by his phone, then handed her a folded piece of paper, a coupon for a local shelter. "Maybe this can help," he said with a dismissive shrug. Nina's heart shattered. In silence, the sharp sting wasn't rejection, it was erasure. Her ideas, her voice, reduced to a handout. Her mind screamed to be heard, but prejudice drowned out every word before it could reach ears willing to listen. In that moment, Nina questioned if brilliance could ever break through when her skin and story were dismissed as invisible. Nina adjusted the collar of her thrifted blazer as she stepped into the sleek cafe. Her heart beat steady, but loud beneath the hum of polished voices and clinking glasses. She clutched a worn folder, the script inside marked only by the pen name S.R. For a moment, she allowed herself to breathe in the faint scent of roasted coffee and polished wood. This was her chance one evening to test the waters, to see if her words could slip past the layers of judgment. She slid into a seat near the corner, careful not to draw attention. Around her, Hollywood's glittering elites sipped cocktails and exchanged business cards, their smiles sharp and guarded. Nina wasn't blind to the risks. One wrong move, one misplaced word, and the illusion would shatter. But tonight, beneath the thrifted fabric and quiet nerves, a spark of hope flickered. This wasn't just about a pitch. It was about reclaiming a voice that had long been silenced. After the opening remarks, Nina caught the eye of Trevor, a well-known Hollywood consultant, with a reputation for brutal honesty. Swallowing nerves, she approached him with the folder clutched to her chest. "Excuse me," she said softly. "I was wondering if you might have a moment to look at my script. I'd really appreciate your honest feedback." Trevor glanced down, offering a polite nod. "Sure, why not? Let's see what you've got." Nina's voice held steady as she spoke, careful but confident. "I've been working on this for a while. It's personal, but I hope it resonates." For a brief moment, hope seemed tangible, a shared space where her words could matter, where her story might finally break through. But reality was waiting. Just around the corner, the moment Nina mentioned her homelessness, Trevor's polite facade cracked like shattered glass. "Wait, you've been homeless?" His voice rose, sharp and mocking. "No wonder you look like that." Laughter bubbled up from the surrounding tables, a cruel chorus that cut through the room. "Sweetheart, this is Hollywood," he sneered. "If you want to play in the big leagues, you need more than dreams. You need connections. And clean clothes." Nina's hands clenched the folder tighter, but she met his gaze without flinching. "This isn't about looks," she said quietly. "It's about the story." Trevor scoffed, shaking his head. "Please, you don't belong here." The crowd's laughter grew, some forcing smiles, others turning away, unwilling to challenge the spectacle unfolding before them. It wasn't just rejection. It was a deliberate performance meant to shame and erase. With a cruel grin, Trevor grabbed the script from Nina's trembling hands. "Let's see what this genius has written." His eyes scanned the pages, then narrowed with exaggerated disdain. He tore the first few sheets in half, letting them flutter to the floor like discarded dreams. "Look at this handwriting, like a 10-year-old scribbling it during recess." The room grew heavier, some patrons chuckling nervously, others pulling out phones to capture the moment. The air thickened with a mix of discomfort and voyeurism. L.A. doesn't reward hope alone, Trevor continued, pacing like a lion circling. "Pray. It costs money, status, and people like you don't have either." Nina stood frozen, swallowing a lump in her throat. Every shred of dignity threatened to unravel under the weight of public cruelty. Yet, despite the humiliation, her silence spoke volumes. This wasn't the end. It was the harshest trial before the rise. The camera's lens caught Nina's quiet resolve. Her eyes fixed somewhere beyond the jeers. She said nothing. Her silence was a fortress stronger than any words. Could be. It bore witness to years of being unseen, unheard, dismissed. Around her, the crowd's laughter slowly faded into an uneasy quiet, as if the weight of the moment finally settled in. Nina wasn't broken. Her strength was a silent roar, demanding to be reckoned with. Near the counter, a young woman leaned close to a friend, whispering with disbelief. "Isn't that Shonda?" she murmured, voice trembling. Eyes shifted, confusion rippling through the room. Doubt flickered on faces that moments ago had been so sure. Could this humble figure really be the famed mind? behind some of the biggest stories in Hollywood? The question hung in the air, fragile and electrifying. In that instant, the narrative wavered. What was once mockery now teetered on the edge of recognition. Nina slipped out without a word. The noise of the cafe swallowed by the night. She found a quiet bench nearby, sinking into the cold wood as the tears she'd held back finally fell. Each droplet carried the weight of years erased, talent ignored, identity dismissed. Yet, even in this solitude, her spirit clung to the fragile threads of hope. The bench was not just a resting place. It was a symbol of the distance between who she was and who the world wanted to see. In the stillness, Nina left her battered manuscript on the bench, and, offering to the unknown, she walked away, defeated but unbroken. Minutes later, a passerby, curious and unaware, picked up the forgotten pages. In their hands rested the seeds of a story waiting to bloom. The voice of a woman who refused to be silenced. This simple act of finding would become the first step toward justice and reclamation. The script was no longer lost. It was on the path to being heard. Leela flipped through the crumpled pages of the manuscript, her eyes widening with each line. The handwriting was rough, but the voice, raw and sharp, resonated deeply. Suddenly, she paused, staring up at the photo tucked inside. "Wait. I know her face," she whispered. The woman who had been humiliated in that cafe, dismissed and ridiculed. This was no ordinary stranger. This was Nina, the ghostwriter whispered about behind closed doors, the silent force behind some of Hollywood's biggest hits. Lila's heart pounded. What she held in her hands was more than a script. It was a story waiting to reclaim its rightful place. As Lila read on, every page revealed Nina's brilliance, sharp dialogue, complex characters, and emotional truths laid bare with unflinching honesty. "This isn't just good," Lila murmured, voice trembling. "It's extraordinary." She could feel the pain and resilience woven through every line. This manuscript was a testament to a mind ignored, a talent eclipsed by prejudice. Leela realized this was more than a story. It was a legacy hidden in plain sight. Here was proof that the woman laughed at, for her appearance had been the creative genius behind countless celebrated scripts. Her admiration grew into anger. How many times had this brilliance been overlooked, erased by bias and betrayal? Leela knew this had to be shared, that the world needed to hear Nina's truth. Pulling out her phone, Lila started recording, her voice steady but charged with emotion. "This is Nia," she said, holding up the manuscript. "She's the woman publicly humiliated in that cafe. But she's so much more the real mind behind Shows You Love, the ghostwriter stolen from my Hollywood system." She posted a video, followed by a detailed thread exposing the cruelty. Nina faced and her stolen legacy. "I won't let her story be buried anymore," Layla declared. "The world needs to see this." Almost instantly, her post struck a chord, setting off a spark that was about to ignite a wildfire. Within hours, #RespectNina was everywhere, trending on social media, shared by millions outraged by the injustice. Messages poured in, support, outrage, and calls for accountability. People demanded recognition for a woman who had been invisible for too long. The hashtag united voices across borders, connecting strangers with a shared mission to honor Nina's talent and expose the systemic racism that tried to silence her. The groundswell of public support created unstoppable momentum, proving that sometimes a single truth can break through the loudest walls. Celebrities with power and influence joined the chorus. Viola Davis posted, "Nina's work shaped so much of what we see today. It's time the world knows who she really is." Kerry Washington added, "Talent like hers has been erased for too long. We stand with Nia." Ava DuVernay shared stories of Nina's hidden genius, confirming the whispers with her own knowledge of industry exploitation. Their endorsements amplified the movement, transforming it from a viral moment into a cultural reckoning. The tide was turning. Nina's brilliance could no longer be denied or hidden behind shadows. Soon, former colleagues stepped forward. Scripts she wrote? Entire seasons, one insider revealed. She disappeared after studios refused to give her credit. Another spoke of how Nina had been exploited, her name replaced on projects she had shaped completely. Their testimonies painted a painful portrait of systemic erasure fueled by racial and class bias. The industry's silent complicity was exposed, fueling public outrage. Nina's story became a symbol, not just of one woman's fight, but of countless others whose contributions had been stolen and silenced. As Nina's story gained traction, Trevor's world began to crumble. Sponsors dropped him. His online following turned toxic. Harassment, abuse, racism, the accusations swirled, each post adding weight to his unraveling reputation. The consultant who once mocked Nia was now the target of widespread condemnation. His power, built on cruelty and silence, was slipping through his fingers. The balance of power was shifting. Justice was no longer a whisper, but a roar growing louder every day. Finally, Lila reached out directly to Nina. "I don't want fame," Nina said quietly over the phone. "I want the truth to matter, not just to be a hashtag or a viral moment." Her voice carried years of guarded pain and cautious hope. "I'm scared this will just become another story told without me." Her reluctance underscored the emotional toll of reclaiming a stolen legacy, reminding Lila that this fight was as personal as it was public. Lila's reply was simple and fierce. "Then let the truth speak. Let the world finally see you for who you really are." This is the story of Nina, a brilliant mind hidden in plain sight. The national news anchor announced, her voice steady but charged with conviction. Once homeless and dismissed, Nina endured discrimination that kept her silent. Yet her work shaped some of Hollywood's biggest hits. Today, her truth can no longer be ignored. The broadcast traced Nina's journey from invisibility to revelation, spotlighting the cruelty she faced and the talent she carried beneath the surface. Viewers across the nation heard her name for the first time, not as a statistic, but as a force demanding justice. This isn't just a personal fight, it's a reflection of systemic bias in the creative industry. The anchor emphasized. Nina's story struck a nerve, awakening awareness about the racial and class barriers that keep voices like hers hidden. The same cafe where Nina was publicly humiliated scrambled to contain the growing backlash. Their official apology, crafted with careful words, acknowledged regret for the insensitive treatment, but fell short of a full reckoning. Meanwhile, Trevor's world was unraveling. Clients distanced themselves. Sponsors withdrew support, unwilling to be associated with a rising scandal. Social media echoed with calls for accountability and change. The tides of public opinion had turned. Where silence once protected cruelty, now exposure threatened to dismantle entrenched power structures. The fallout was swift and unmistakable. On a major talk show, Nina appeared poised, her calm presence radiating quiet strength. When asked about her journey, she spoke with raw honesty. "I've been invisible, erased and underestimated," Nina said. "But my story is not just about hardship. It's about resilience, creativity, and reclaiming what was stolen." Her words resonated far beyond the studio. Viewers saw not a victim, but a woman empowered by truth and determination. She spoke not to plead, but to inspire change, reminding everyone that brilliance often hides beneath the surface of prejudice. During the interview, Nina paused and delivered a line that would become a viral anthem. "They laughed at a homeless woman, but not at talent," she said softly, voice steady yet piercing. Those words echoed through social media feeds and newsrooms, a stark reminder of how bias distorts perception. The nation was forced to confront uncomfortable truths, about how society judges worth not by ability, but by appearance. Nina revealed the working title of her memoir, Invisible Ink, Writing While Black. Publishers, who had once ignored her, scrambled, igniting a bidding war fueled by newfound respect and demand. The industry's blindside recognition was overdue, but Nina was no longer the same woman who once begged for acknowledgement. This time, the power was hers. Nina signed with a respected black-owned publishing house known for honoring marginalized voices. Unlike before, she held the reins, selecting her team, controlling the narrative, and protecting her dignity. For the first time, her story would be told on her terms. With part of her advance, Nina launched a fellowship supporting homeless writers and creatives from underrepresented communities. Her mission was clear: to nurture voices silenced by poverty and prejudice, providing opportunity where she once faced exclusion. She was transforming pain into purpose. Returning to the cafe that had once mocked her, Nina stood as the keynote speaker for their diversity panel. This time, respect filled the room where cruelty once reigned. Nina closed her speech quietly, but powerfully. Never underestimate a quiet woman with a pen, especially when she has nothing left to lose. Have you ever caught yourself judging someone by how they look and later realized you were wrong? This question isn't just about Nina's story. It's about all of us, the moments we let assumptions blind our truth. Now, think about your own experiences, times when you or someone you know faced prejudice or was misunderstood because of appearances. Share your story below. Your voice matters and connects us all. If Nina's journey touched you, type power in the pen to stand with her and countless others whose voices have been silenced. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories that challenge bias and inspire real change. Together, we rewrite the narrative.